What's going on, Bitcoin accumulation country? My name is Phil. This is the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. We are in season 3 and this is episode 22. Thank you everybody for joining me. Hope everybody's having a great week. I've got a really great interview today with the team from Nodl. So with us, we've got Ketominer, and we've also got, I'm going to try to pronounce his Twitter correctly, Asku. I hope I got that right. I definitely did. I definitely did my best. Anyways, I've been trying to get a chat with these guys for a really long time, and we've just been going back and forth for probably almost like 8 months. Anyways, finally got it down, finally got it recorded, and it turned out really well. So I'm very excited. But before we get into that, we are going to talk about Swan Bitcoin and dollar cost averaging. For anybody who is interested in dollar cost averaging and who wants to be purchasing Bitcoin but doesn't want to be spending their time constantly watching the charts and listening to traders that they really have no idea whether these people are credible or not, and you kind of just want to put this in a passive sleep mode where you're simply just accumulating and hodling and then being able to transfer that Bitcoin out to your own private address. So if you're interested in doing that and that falls in your wheelhouse, then you are looking for Swan Bitcoin. With Swan Bitcoin, the 3 main takeaways are we can do automatic withdrawal from a bank account, automatic purchases of BTC. You can time them based on your when you receive your check. You can do it let's say once you can do it once a month, or you can do it per pay period as well. There's lots of options for you to be able to customize how you purchase. And you could automatically withdraw to your chosen address. So if you're interested in a Bitcoin-only platform that is doing the great work of helping onboard people, then you definitely want to check out Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to have the link to their website in the show notes. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and joining me today is two very special guests that we've been going back and forth and trying to get this podcast together, but the stars haven't aligned until today. So joining me is Ketominer and Asku from the Nodl team. Guys, thank you very much for taking the time to join me on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Very cool. So look, I see a lot of offerings on your on your website. Then obviously I want to talk about the Nodl. But before we talk about the Nodl, I definitely want to discuss your rabbit hole stories and see why the thinker behind the thought, why you got into Bitcoin. So we'll start off with Ketominer. And if you don't mind letting us know how you tumbled down the rabbit hole and where you came from.
So I'm an IT guy, so I spend my life on the internet for 20 years now, basically. But my first contact with Bitcoin was when Second Life was a thing, around 2010 probably. And actually, for me, it was just another bullshit game money, so I didn't pay attention to it and didn't do much to understand what it means. And then I met a guy in 2012 at work who told me more about it and explained to me really the concepts and why it is a great technical object. I'm always approaching things as technical objects less than like ideology or even the money itself. And we started working on a project which was a hardware wallet actually first. Then we went apart on 2 different companies. The project died by itself. And now 3 years ago, I started really being involved in meetups and stuff. And I decided what's better to understand it than to just use it on a day-to-day basis. And I built my first hardware full node because I didn't want to use a computer, general purpose computer for that. So I built a hardware full node. It was a Raspberry Pi Zero with an SSD, and all that was packed into an external hard drive case.
Oh my God.
So that was the very first Nodl. It didn't have a name. It didn't have a commercial goal per se. And and sometime later, like more than a year later, when Lightning started appearing and then BTC Pay server, I've seen the opportunity to really build a product around the full node with additional services.
I want to I want to ask you about how did you get it to work on a Pi Zero, a full node on a Pi Zero?
Yeah, so back in those days with an SSD, you could run a full node on the Pi Zero and sync in about 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
That was when the blockchain was probably just under 100 gigabytes.
Okay, that's really cool because recently I was thinking about that. I was like, I was wondering, I'm like, man, could we ever get it to work on something that small again?
So I guess if you run it pruned and if you copy the blocks from another device, it would probably stay synced if you never turn it off.
Nice. So in other words, we need a stronger, more powerful Pi Zero.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, very cool. I really appreciate that. That's definitely so. It's interesting that you came at it from the technical aspect. Okay, so I have to wonder because I came at it from partially from the technical and also from the philosophical standpoint, but I still got dragged into shitcoining because I just wasn't mentally strong enough. So I have to ask you, because you came at it from the technical side, why didn't you know what I mean? Like, why didn't you fall into the trap of, the technology trap of going towards shitcoins? What is it that made you stay on the course with Bitcoin specifically?
I had a short period in 2017 where I was mining any shitcoin possible, but I was mining them for Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course.
So. I don't know. It's probably understanding that it's impossible for something new to accumulate the proof of work that is already there in Bitcoin.
Interesting.
It just doesn't make sense investing time. And also, there are so many Bitcoin news and things happening, and the technology is so complex that just overloading my brain, my CPU time with other coins makes no sense.
Yeah, seriously. I always have to ask, because it's just, it always fascinates me. So if, you know what, if we could switch over to Asku, Asku.
Yeah, I guess my story is a little different because I didn't come in from technical side at all, because that's not my side anyways. But I came in from like the newspaper really, and it required, I guess, a lot more effort to wrap my head around all these concepts that I really wasn't familiar with, just because I wanted to understand more. And I had a hard time figuring out what was true or not true in the papers because it seemed too good to be true, or there were a lot of questions that were unanswered when you read the newspaper, that I actually ended up going to meetups and then just being very, very lucky in who I met first. And that just kept me with Bitcoin. I never moved away from Bitcoin. I stuck with it, but partially through luck in the first people I met around Bitcoin.
So when was that, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. I guess it's maybe a little longer than I would think. Maybe 4 years ago.
4 years ago? Cool.
Not that long,
Yeah. Okay, so like 2015, 2016.
Probably, yeah.
Interesting. So,
and it's kind of fuzzy because it didn't happen like suddenly. It was fairly gradual, and you just get sucked in, and you don't see time goes by, and then it's been a few years.
So I guess what was it that attracted you to Bitcoin? Because you said you didn't come in from the technical aspect. Is it the ideology or just the financial, like, investments?
I guess the thing for me was it was supposed to have so many promises, and it seemed so complicated that I kind of felt was fishy. I was like, I don't get it. Why is it like that magical, And because it was complicated, I had to dig in a little bit, and I probably drew a few parallels between like the ideology behind people who try to build Bitcoin and maybe what happened around like creating the internet, and which I find is fascinating. Like, you know, stories of like the 60s, the 70s. I kind of like that vibe, and there's probably a lot of similarities in trying to build something better, because you're not necessarily satisfied with what you see around you. So it's very ideological for me, anyways.
Okay, cool. So all right. So you're more the ideological guy, and Keto is more the tech guy. So how, if you don't mind me asking, how did you guys, like, how did you meet, and how did you decide to form this and make Nodl?
We're the beer guys first, so we met over beer. No,
awesome.
we met at the meetup in Paris.
Oh, cool.
There's a small crowd, but we met some very interesting people. I guess it definitely got me started a lot. And we met at the bar, and probably 3-4 years ago too.
Interesting.
Actually, if you go through the pictures on the Nodl Twitter account, you will see I reposted a picture of this first prototype, and it's from the day we met.
Oh, cool. I'll definitely check it out. And actually, if what's it called? I'll post a link to it in the show notes.
Sure.
Because that's some pretty good stuff. Okay, so I mean, so why, I guess for me, like, why is it that you chose to make a node? Like, I understand like Ketominer started, doing, with a hardware wallet and stuff like that. But I guess, Asku, on your end, like, what was it that drew you to decide, okay, I want to go in this direction, with this?
So the first encounter was kind of funny because, the bar changed now, but the place where the meetings used to take place is extremely dark. So you almost can't see anything in the bar. When you cross to go to the bathroom in the back, it's just obscure. And I'm walking down by the bar to get a drink, and I see lights flashing. It's like Christmas. And I turned, and Keto's there. I didn't know him at the time. With a stack of like phone chargers and a Raspberry, and everything's blinking. And that was the node, actually. And so because it was unusual, I stopped. I was like, what is that? We started talking, and that's it. That's how we met. So we actually met through the early Nodl prototype, I guess.
That's really cool. It's just like, I find like these, I guess it's like serendipitous, it just, it kind of works together. It's really interesting. So you also like blinking lights, right? I'm a huge fan of LEDs and any of that stuff. Like the second you throw
it's like something's happening.
Yes. And if you get the right glow, it just looks so cool. So exactly. Yeah, I totally.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and the thing is, like, we'll get into it later, but like we showcased the prototypes at various conferences later on, unfinished, no casing, cables everywhere. The thing's a mess, but people will stop and they'll come talk to you, and they're excited and they're curious, and that's how you meet people, and that's how it started for us. That how it goes most of the time. You talk to people because people are curious about this.
I was going to say, specifically, you end up meeting the right type of people, because when you sit there, I personally, what you just described, 100% I'd walk over and sit there and stare and ask questions. I'd have no choice. It's like the deer caught in the headlights. So it's definitely interesting, and it draws those types of people in. So I'm actually just on your website right now, and I'm looking at your guys' offerings. And I was, I explained this to you before the show. I'm partially ignorant, to your product. I only know about it from the interview I did with Matt Odell and some of the basic research I've done. It looks like an incredible product. Matt absolutely sings your praises. He absolutely, to me, on the podcast, he said how amazing it was and how easy it was to use. And I'm just looking right now, and I see you got quite a few different offerings. You've got the Nodl One, the Dojo, the Cloud, the Rack. So if you don't mind, if we can go through each of them and you guys can just kind of, just explain, I guess, the differences, between them, or I guess what the use case is between them. Because the Nodl Cloud, I feel, is something more corporate, and the rack also, I feel, is more corporate.
So let's rewind to the box first, and just to add a little of backstory. So as you mentioned before, the Raspberry Pi Zero is something which won't run a full node today. And actually, after this first prototype died of just burnout, I spent the next year or so trying every possible SBC, single board computer, and storage combination to find out which one would be optimal to run a full node. So a lot of research actually went into just buying any Raspberry Pi type device on the market and testing it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so currently our box has a 6-core processor. It's a RK3399. For those who know a little about ARM processors, it's a big little combination. So it has 2 big cores and 4 small cores. Typically, the big cores will be running stuff like Bitcoin D itself, and the small cores will be running like the background processes such as Tor and other stuff. And yeah, and another thing that I noticed pretty early on is that an SSD is a necessity for having something which actually works. Because spinning drives or even spinning drives with an SSD cache are not fast enough for the current state of the blockchain and all the services we want to run on top of that. Like just a BTC RPC Explorer, Block Explorer that we just added, is a very CPU and storage consuming piece of software. So if you don't have fast input outputs on the storage, you will just wait forever to see one block. Then as you said, the rack is definitely a corporate product. Today is more a showcase product because we anticipate the day where people like Amazon, Walmart, or Carrefour in Europe will ask to process big amounts of Bitcoin payments per day.
Yeah.
So we want to be ready and have a product for that. Currently, we don't have customers for that because it's a niche product and no one really cares for high volume. But we can show that we can do it. We have a small scale rack with only 2 small motherboards inside, with 4 cores, 4 gigs of RAM, which runs the full stack redundantly on the 2 boards. But that can scale up to 4 servers in a 2 rack unit rack device, with tons of SSD storage, tons of RAM, and processing thousands of transactions per minute or per second.
That's pretty amazing. I really like that, you know what I mean, that you guys have a product like this, because I can honestly say, at least 8 months ago, I was sitting there thinking, like, why aren't we having these bigger systems? Because eventually, if we do, you know what I mean? It's like, if we don't build it, if you guys don't build it, then the infrastructure isn't there when people say, well, can it do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
that's the bet. Yeah.
And then we have the Nodl Cloud, which sits in between. It's actually not one product. It's like many different things under one name. Our goal is to build the AWS for Bitcoin. So any person that wants to run a Bitcoin-based service and not manage the infrastructure can rent different services. Obviously, the most simple one is just exactly the same Nodl UI with all the same services, but on the cloud or dedicated based server. Let's say you are a digital nomad and you don't have a place to put your physical box. You can just rent one in the cloud. Then you have the other use cases such as BTC Pay Server. We have, from what I know, one of the few let's call it enterprise-style deployments of BTC Pay server with redundant databases, load balancers, and all the bells and whistles that you expect from a production website. And another use case which we have for a few months now is hosting massive amounts of Lightning instances. Because the big difference between a Bitcoin instance and a Lightning instance is that you need one Lightning instance running for each wallet or each user. So we are running the biggest part of the backend servers for the Phynx chat application, and that's hundreds of Lightning nodes.
Oh, wow. I really know nothing about that. I'm sorry, what is that called?
Phynx chat. You maybe heard about Juggernaut.
Yes.
Which is a desktop-based app for chat on Lightning. So Phynx is the same on mobile, and there is also a desktop version coming soon.
That's really interesting. I'm sorry, I didn't know that they were even related. But to go back to something that you said about the hard drives, I think it's very interesting. I noticed that as well very early on, is that as soon as I strapped an SSD in there, I know that people talk about, the download time, right? Like when you're setting up a node, okay? Once you get to the point where you're downloading the blockchain, whether you're doing it from Tor or you're actually downloading, not from Tor, but a compressed file, or you're actually getting the full blockchain. I noticed that with spinning drives, even with a Raspberry Pi 3, you're probably looking at about, with decent bandwidth, you're looking at about something like 7 days. And even though it shouldn't matter, okay? Even though it shouldn't matter, I did the exact same test with an SSD, and it cut it down to 2.5 days. And that was on a Pi 3. On a Pi 4, it's even faster. So it's like maybe the download time is only affected by the bandwidth, but I firmly believe that the disk read and seek times make a difference when it goes through and verifies the blockchain during that process.
Yeah, definitely the seek times, which are 0 on an SSD.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the bandwidth, I overestimated the influence of bandwidth in the beginning, because if you just run one node on the network, you see a huge spike in the beginning of the download, but it's not necessary. It's mostly because you're rebroadcasting the blocks that you already acquired. And now I have like 12 nodes syncing on my network, and the total bandwidth is probably under 10 megs.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting. I do a lot of these kind of, like network tests just to see how much traffic is actually going on. And to be perfectly honest, when a node is, up and running, once we're done with the downloads, I mean, you're talking about kilobytes. Like at one point I had I think it was like 10 nodes running, and each of them is maybe doing 7 to 12 kilobytes or something a second. It's really not that much.
Yeah, we were surprised that some users actually have a higher bandwidth, but we noticed that it's mostly the users that opened the Bitcoin ports to the outside, so they are just having incoming connections from other nodes.
So let me ask you, I guess, because I mean, look, you guys, to me, you seem to have offerings all around. You mentioned at the beginning one of the first things you were working on was a hardware wallet. Is there any plans like that in the works from Nodl?
No, not really.
No?
So I mean, I personally iterated through many ideas, but there are some great products that came meanwhile on the market, and I don't think. I mean, I can do some basic electronics, but I dropped out from school too early to do something meaningful.
That's not true. What are you talking about, man? You guys are killing it with this thing. I think it's super cool. So I guess what actually is what are your plans for the stuff that you can actually share? Of course, no top secret lightning stuff, but any ideas going forward with Nodl?
I think the main next step is to actually make the Nodl Cloud offering public, because now it's a kind of a private beta stage. We are late on that, and it's among other things related to the coronavirus, actually, because the data centers are very hard to access right now,
Oh yeah.
and you can't just plug in new servers.
No.
It's that stupid. And I just got word that the situation in the data centers won't change before September because it's a global company and they're applying the same policy in all the countries. So as long as there will be one country with an active virus circulation situation, they will not open any data center in the world. So we can only go for emergency maintenance, but not to add new hardware.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. They're putting their rules in place. So let me ask you this. I've never actually seen the UI for the for the Nodl. Do you guys make a custom UI?
Yeah, it's based on Bootstrap CSS, like many things today. It's not the prettiest thing because I'm not a web developer and I don't want to be one anyway. So it's very basic, but yeah, it's functional and most people never ask any questions. So I guess they find their way around. Basically, you just have one single password that you have to set when you first get the device. And then you have one tile for each application running on it. And you can just install, upgrade, and access the settings of all the applications. And for example, if you want to connect an external Lightning wallet such as Zap or Zeus, or fully noded to access the Bitcoin D or any other app, you just scan QR codes. You have usually 2 QR codes for every service, one for ClearNet and one for Tor.
Okay, very interesting. So look, so let me ask you this, right? If I'm a, you know what I mean? I'm a retail user that is not so technical, right? Which, how I guess, how would I experience, like, how would my experience be with the Nodl? Like, is I'm trying to figure out, like, what type of user is it? Is it more the technical user that this is geared to, or is this more like really the retail, kind of branching into the retail end of a little bit less technical?
We have 3 different types, and they're probably equal in the user population. One is the totally not technical person who heard about Bitcoin and want to use it. And we have some very early users that are in this situation, who are just totally not technical and they want to have some side gig and accept Bitcoin payments. So they bought a Nodl and run BTC Pay server or just a wallet, a Lightning wallet on top of it. The other type is the pure hardcore Bitcoin enthusiast who is on the market for any new device appearing and didn't probably even unpack the box. And the third one is the technical people who understand and want some particular feature. We didn't mention that yet, but we are running the dojo backend, so you can use it with your Samway wallet. It's the same idea. You just scan a QR code and it connects your Samway wallet to the dojo backend.
Oh yeah.
And you don't use the Samurai servers anymore, so your transactions are totally confidential from them. So now that we have this new box which is dedicated to running this backend, we have a lot of users which are just Samurai users who want to become independent from their servers.
So that is the Nodl Dojo, right?
Yeah, so
okay.
All the Nodls get this functionality, but the Nodl Dojo has a few features that make it better for that use, such as a RAID storage. So you get 2 drives in mirror of each other. If one drive dies, you still have a second drive. And it has full disk encryption because for running the Whirlpool mixer, you need private keys on the box. And we didn't want people to have private keys on an unencrypted box.
So I'm sorry, I just want to go back to the redundant mirror drives. So to understand, do you have like a backup UI that, or like a restore UI where like the drive gets detected that it fails and you can actually choose to run off the second, or is it just like an automatic, I guess, like an automatic switching function that primary drive dies and this one just kicks on and you don't even know unless you go check the logs kind of thing?
So you will notice, because you will have to restart the device. I just noticed that recently. I didn't think about it when designing it. And to have a faster bandwidth on the swap partition, I split it in two and put it on the two drives, and that part is not mirrored. So if one of the drives dies, your swap memory will be wiped and you will have to restart the device, and then it will restart only on one drive. And as soon as you replace the second drive, you have a few commands to run and it will start rebuilding the RAID on the second drive. That's also the path if you want to upgrade the drive capacity in the future. You can just replace one drive, rebuild the RAID, and then replace the second drive.
I like that. I like that you guys put redundancy. So let me ask you this, and again, it's just because I didn't check the specs, so it's my ignorance. But does the Nodl 1 also have this redundancy, or it's really starts with the dojo?
No, that's the big difference. The Nodl 1 has only one drive, and it's a smaller box, so it doesn't have space to put two drives in. And another security feature that we have on the dojo is the kill switch. So as I said, you have an encrypted drive, but if your device is running and someone accesses it physically, he still can access the data. So if someone tries to open the box, it will actually cut the power to the CPU, and the keys for the encryption will disappear.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. And I'm sorry, is that on that's on the dojo only, or the one as well?
The dojo only.
Okay, yeah, very interesting.
It will come to the Nodl 1 as an add-on module.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, because I've definitely I've taken a look at it and I really like it. You know, I like that it's red. I think that's very cool. Does it light up? Are there any LEDs that shine through so that the logo looks all cool?
Yeah, actually, there is a red backlight LED just for the logo, which you can deactivate if you want.
Yeah, it's got to look pretty, you know. It's I don't know. I'm a fan of that. You know, it's got to obviously it's got to work, but it's got to look pretty, and you guys have it all, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't really have any more questions for you guys. I think that's unless do you have anything else that you want to add about the Nodl project?
I think the most important thing to say is that we wouldn't be here without the community of our users. They were incredibly supporting all the time, even when the shipping delays happened because of the virus and other technical reasons. And we thank them a lot for being understanding and being with us all that time.
Bitcoiners are the best, man. Fantastic. Shout out to the Nodl community. All right, guys. Thank you very much, by the way, for joining me on my pod. I really appreciate your time and all your expertise and what you guys are bringing to the Bitcoin community and the Bitcoin space.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, Phil.
Thank you. Hope everybody enjoyed my conversation with the folks from Nodl. If you want to reach them, you can find their contact details in the show notes for Twitter. As well, if you want to reach me on Twitter or Telegram, I'm at Coinicarus. If you want to shoot me an email, I am coinicarus@funwithbitcoin.com. Thank you all for listening, and catch you all next time.